So our next session addresses this behavior change and the challenge it puts forth to media planners and for people who are head of media like the ones that you see here. So a huge welcome to Archana from Airtel, Ram from Comscore, Sudhir from ShareChat, and Taranjit from Tata Consumer Products. They will be sharing on how they are planning differently to capture your attention because the audience is now not where it was in 2019. The audience has moved on doing new things. So, what are the elements of the new media plan? And Ram will be moderating this session. So, over to you, Ram. You already saw that people are spending most time on OTT platforms, followed by gaming and I think social buying stuff online. So your take on that. So I'm going to leave this to you now.
Thank you, Shiny, and welcome everyone. So, interesting times. This is probably not the first webinar for quite a few of you or an online discussion, but that's the times we are living in. So what we've also seen is that the pandemic has changed media consumption habits in a huge way. We've seen dramatic shifts in digital media consumption since the beginning of the lockdown, especially in India. Gaming, entertainment, business communication tools like Microsoft Teams and Zoom, and news, which was already a very high reach and engagement content, also saw increase in engagement. Then people took to financial services, investments, insurance, health information, the Arogya Setu app, and whatever not. And then religion and spirituality. All sorts of media categories saw spikes in engagement. And as some of you have also reiterated, education also has seen an engagement increase and reach changes as well. And some categories, understandably, most categories that were to do with anything to do outdoor, travel, sports, all of these saw a huge dip. But business still needed to go on, and sales must have, sales must happen. So how did folks on this panel adjust to this change in consumer trends? So the first question I have is for Sudhir. How have advertiser expectations changed, and how does where does ShareChat fit in such a performance-led media plan? Clicks lead the user away from your platform. So where do you draw the line between the continuing to engage the user versus delivering performance for a campaign? So it'll be great if you can start with that.
Sure. So, just to give you some perspective on how we saw the consumption pattern changing for our consumer on the platform. So, the average time spent on the platform went up by around 35%. So, we're right now at around 30 minutes per day per user time. And this earlier was around 18 minutes. So, we've seen a significant jump there. And also the consumption pattern has changed from consuming more static content to more video content on the platform. So in terms of how, say, ShareChat as a platform saw a shift between pre-COVID times and post-COVID times. This was a broad pattern change in terms of users on the platform. Um, Obviously, the supply in India has increased manifold. If the user is spending more time on the platform, it implies that more ads on the platform and more supply as such, right? Broadly, the what we saw that the price point for the inventory went down. It was expected, and that's what happened. And the focus on the performance also went up. So. If I may say so, mota the amount of conversations that were happening in the market were more performance focused than, say, brand focus for last 4 or 5 months. Last month was slightly different. The IPL and the gaming thing brought branding back in the ecosystem, but prior to that, it was very performance centric conversations that were happening.
Got it. So, Taran, my follow-up question is for you. Did you see the kind of increase in availability as Sudhir was mentioning? Did your choices go up or down as a consumer brand? My understanding is you would want to reach as many people as possible. You're wide reach based advertiser. Did your choices go up or down in this time especially? Taran, you're still on mute.
Yeah, the choices did go up. Actually, I think it is also to do with how the consumer is, changing the consumption of media. So earlier, if I were to look at how we were planning media, it was obviously as and when we are seeing the surge of OTT, and they had a small space, okay, for, let's say, video platforms on digital, whether it is YouTube or OTT or any other platform. But of course, what pandemic did is change the entire way consumer was actually viewing things on the media platforms. There was a time where the shoots had stopped on TV, and there was no original content, and that's when I think the major shift had happened to the digital platforms, and specifically I would say OTT platforms or video platforms, because there was hunger for more content, more fresh content that was coming in. And of course, with, I think, change in consumption pattern, and any advertiser would just look at what are the new trends in the market and go after the consumer. And that's how I think it's more a demand and supply way, the way it functions, right? So there was a lot of demand of fresh content, and hence there was more inventory, and hence there were more advertisers to pick up such inventory. So of course, in our media planning, there was a big amount of change that we did, whether it was the introduction of a lot of element on e-com and a lot of element of OTT or video platform. I think a lot of our money actually moved towards those kind of platforms. And I think what was also important is more performance driven, because like the way Sudhir was saying, if there is more demand, everybody is going after the same inventory, right, or the same slot of that consumer. And in a FMCG sector, at least the TG is pretty mass, 25 to 44 females ABC, right? And that's the audience everybody is really gunning for. So I think that's where the whole game is actually.
So what share does e-commerce have today for Tata Consumer Products?
See, it varies. Do you see
that changing or staying going forward?
Yeah. So if I were to just tell you more of how it has moved before and after pandemic, it has moved, I would say, 2 times or 3 times actually. And it's also to do with the GT was closed, and everybody was shopping. There were fresh consumers online, right? So what we were spending earlier on e-com versus what we are spending today, there is, I would say, more than 2 times up in that number. And and as I said, it is a lot to do with where the consumer is going. So today, if I were earlier, if I was running an inventory awareness campaign, I was doing a digital campaign where I would have, let's say, a banner ad on Facebook and YouTube and OTT for reach. But today, when I'm looking at digital plans, I have a huge component of, let's say, Amazon DSP, right? Or the DSP component of all of these e-com platforms, right? Where I'm able to connect who's the consumer who's picking up this grocery online, and how can I reach him on a video platform outside that, right? So I think
a lot of brought you closer to your consumer, the e-commerce platforms.
Yes, I think the pandemic has got us off our comfort zone and stretching, to reach the consumer, I think the way we had not thought before. And I think it has also done a really good thing for even the platforms, right? Even the media partners, for launching new kind of things in the market, which are not existing earlier. So I think it has only done good for us in terms of agility, in terms of new ways of reaching the consumer, in terms of more efficiency and effectiveness, actually.
Got it. So, Archana, I mean, a lot of the challenges that a consumer brand also, right, like Airtel, does not face is because you own a lot of your media, right? we track user engagement across platforms, and we've seen consistent growth across all your apps, your consumer-facing content apps, be it Wink or Airtel TV, or it was called Airtel Movies earlier, right? And then your My Airtel as well. So, what advantages did you have of owning media?
We own, you're right, we own a lot of media ourselves, which is also available to external folks to advertise on. So when you said My Airtel, it's an Airtel Thanks app, which is, we saw a lot of growth in traction in terms of all these apps. So there's the Extreme app, there is the Wink, there's Airtel Thanks, and then there is the DTH channels where you can advertise. So there's all of this inventory which is available. What we also saw was a lot of traction coming in, because now since everything was in lockdown mode, people weren't getting out. And if you wanted to recharge, and India is a 95% prepaid country, right? Very few people are on postpaid, right? So you need to keep recharging your phone on a regular basis, and people are used to going to the store to recharge. So that quickly got a lot of people on our platforms to recharge on our platform, because we also have a payments bank app, right? A payments bank, which is part of our Airtel Thanks app. You could pay via payments bank, or you could pay via any other payments app. Mm-hmm. And we saw like a fairly like a double, triple number in terms of jump in terms of people recharging online, right? So for us, that was, so obviously while you said that, these are our own apps, this is about us talking to our consumers, right? To our own Airtel consumer base. But that's not what we only talk to, right? You also talk to the larger base who's not Airtel consumers. And I think that was, the challenge, right? It was easier to, so I think our first challenge was, right, to get people to understand that it's okay, don't worry, we are there. You can recharge online through these platforms, right? That was the biggest, because a huge, you can say like 70-80% people go to retail stores to recharge, right? To the retail store. Now, suddenly, if the retail stores are shut, what do you do? And the consumer is not comfortable recharging online, because I think the one big thing which happened is a lot of people moved to doing digital payments online, which there were fewer people doing. And what we also realized that there were people who were comfortable doing digital payments for buying e-commerce or whatever other things, but weren't doing the recharge online for whatever reasons, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe they were uncomfortable. So we actually quickly pivoted and created a film, and we ran it on digital and on news platforms and stuff like that, because news was the only platform which was really growing, even on television. And to help people understand how you can recharge, and it's so simple. So we actually created a 1-minute tutorial type of film which said, okay, this is how you can recharge online, right? And that became very important very early on when the lockdown just started, which is end March, early April. And that's what we did. Mm-hmm. We also had one of our biggest campaigns where we did a full pivot on where said, zero questions. Like, you can ask us questions, and our mission is to get to zero questions, right? That was one of the biggest things that we did, because it was something which the company was pivoting fully on from what we were doing in the past, to saying that, okay, we understand that you have lots of concerns, questions, clarifications, and here we are here to answer all of those. Right. And still partly in the lockdown.
On the questions part, as in, I have one follow-up to ask you is, now, how much of this interaction with your consumers was in regional languages? Have you seen any change in trends in communication both ways in regional languages?
So what we've done is we've actually launched the Thanks app is now available in a lot more regional languages, because that's something which is really, we're growing on that, and we are looking at that because we're looking at it, the Thanks app being a self-care app, being an app where you can do all your transactions, you can buy a product, you can recharge your DTH or your mobile phone, all of that. You can also, if you have questions, because your call centers were suddenly not working, right? Your call centers had to, because people couldn't get to the call center. So suddenly the app became the call, in a way, the call center. So we introduced a lot more features, like, the bot where you could chat, and made it more humanized, right? We wanted it, because suddenly from a one-to-one interaction with a person, you're going to an interaction with a non-human face, and that becomes very uncomfortable for a lot of people. So we've done a lot of things on the Thanks app to help make the consumer journey easier. And I think that has helped. So we've also introduced a lot of vernacular languages for consumers to be able to interact in that in those languages. So that obviously helps. But Hindi is obviously the biggest, always will remain the biggest.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm not so sure about that piece. I want to get Sudhir's input on that, about whether Hindi is indeed the biggest, or do they see other languages growing. So, I mean, ShareChat is one of the largest, or the largest, regional social media platform in India. So I want to hear your perspective on this, Sudhir.
So the numbers for ShareChat are around 50 million DAO number and 130 million MAU number. And Hindi contributes to 24% of that audience base as such. So, and we are available in 14 languages. So the spectrum here is, so Archana, probably Hindi is big in terms of population of India, but among the literate audience, probably South dominates. I mean, probably.
So Sudhir, do you see a change in advertiser expectations? That is there a marked change in demand for regional language advertising in the course of your journey with ShareChat? You've been around for many years now. So what changes have you noticed in customer expectations when it comes to languages?
So before this session, one number was pointed out as 0.3% being the average CTR of digital ads. That number on ShareChat is 0.7, and when the moment the conversation or the communication goes vernacular, there is at least 1.5x increase in CTR. So I mean, if the communication is vernacular, the engagement rates go up. It's period. The problem is the scalability of that solution as such, right? I mean, people are probably intuitively very okay with Hindi or English communication as such, but beyond that, that certainty of that communication being exactly what you want it to be, that solution is little tricky to scale. Like we ourselves have a full stack solution for vernacularizing ad, but there are always fears around it.
Got it. So that takes me to the next question for Taranjeet. How much of your advertising or media spend today is focused around regional languages? And number two, also my personal experience with regional ads is, though the ad appears in the language of my choice or one I'm familiar with, the journey after that seldom remains so. I'm still going to an English language landing page. So how much or say what's Tata's approach to advertising in the regional languages?
So I think that's a very interesting question, because Tata Tea, which is the flagship brand in Tata Salt, and particularly Tata Tea, the brand basically plays in 8 states of India and not all of India as when it comes to communication. So the kind of comms that we have created for each of these states, which would be primarily, let's say, a UP or a Haryana or a Punjab separately, which in a regular scenario, an advertiser would just do an HSM plan. We actually have separate creatives with the real insight of the consumer on that, of that state, and even the language comms like that. And even if, let's say, you were to go to our campaigns. So one of the campaigns that we actually activated during the pandemic was Is Baar Badon Ke Liye Jago Re, which is more an initiative on the Jago Re flagship campaign that we have, where we actually told the consumers that why don't you go and help the elderly near you, because they are the most prone to COVID-19. And the communication that we had rolled out was absolutely vernac. Whether it was...
Is your media plan also aligned with this
yes,
vernacular strategy?
Yes.
Do you buy media today that's based on languages?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it works very well. And I think what Sudhir was talking, the moment you make it vernac, immediately the audiences click. And I'm not really talking about NCCS, a kind of an audience where English really works. But if you go down the NCCS, I think that's where the click really happens, because they're the guys who are more comfortable. Even our South campaigns, all the campaigns have a regional language and fed into it. Even the campaign comms are designed like that, and it's not dubbed to what you were talking about. It's not dubbed one masterpiece which is dubbed in a different language. We actually make it for the market, and it's also to do with how tea consumption is different by market. So people who are tea lovers take their a cup of tea very seriously, whether it is the taste that they actually expect from it, right? And if it doesn't really connect with them, and if it's just a creative that somebody's seeing, the conversion actually doesn't happen. And this is a campaign which we rolled out like a year and a half back, and we've seen tremendous results of that actually. And I think Vernac is something which really clicks with the audiences.
Correct, correct. So on building a little bit more on the Jagore piece, Taranjeet, it's a very socially conscious kind of brand, right? The Tata Tea, all the communication centered around that. So how important is brand safety in delivering such an ad? On the one hand, you have to maximize reach. It's relevant for everybody, but again, the context in which it needs to be seen, like the Addy was mentioning earlier. So, what role does brand safety play in your campaigns today? Do you track it? Do you plan for it? How does that work?
So yeah, I think we have brand safety measurement partners who are embedded in all our digital campaigns that we do. We also have verification viewability partners, who help us ensure that the brand is appearing in a safe environment. So of course, those things I would feel now with how the advertisers are increasing their pie on digital, it is becoming more and more hygiene rather than something that is, oh wow, somebody is really doing it. But I think it's more hygiene. And of course, we have our partners in place in terms of a brand safety environment. And I would feel it is really important, whether it is on a regional platform. And I think if you look at it from the way today India consumes digital, it's all mobile first, right? And a lot of the platforms that we advertise on may not necessarily be tagged on through a verification partner or a brand safety partner. I think that's where a lot of times the advertisers have to be a little more cognizant of who you're partnering with and how is the content going to appear. And I'm talking about platforms like maybe an OTT, right? Today, if you do a campaign with any of the OTT platforms, and suppose you have original content integration, you really have to make sure that it does not have anything which is unsafe, right? And we do a lot of content integrations for the brand. And I think that's one of the pieces which we definitely pick up in every conversation.
Correct. So on that front, right, going back to Sudhir on the brand safety piece, you deal with user-generated content, which is a lot harder to control, how do you deal with brand safety?
Right. I mean, just to kind of give you the magnitude of the problem, the amount of pages that people consume on the platform is around 6 billion pages per day. You can assume that each page is one unique content as such.
And you've also launched a video app now, right? Moj. So
right.
That's UGC video. That's a bigger challenge.
Right. But I mean, so this number is kind of slightly deceptive. The way it works is that the quality content that gauges engagement drops significantly. So while we have 6 billion page views happening per day, the unique content that people are viewing is around, say, 1 million. Okay. And so this is so the way we kind of try to solve this problem is that not every content is going to gain the velocity as such. So while it's a UGC platform, a lot of content gets created. A lot of content just gets created and is staying in a device where it's created. It's not pedaled far as such, right? We have put in very strong processes around say brand safety for our own good first, because one bad episode will ruin a lot of customers for us as well. Not just say advertising customers, but even the genuine users on the platform don't like to engage with some of the content gets paddled as such. So So we have a very strong, say, AI process, one, as well as, say, every content that gets some traction or velocity. Our definition is anything that gets more than 10,000 views is human verified, so that we ensure that nothing untowards is getting viral on the platform.
Got it. Got it.
Right.
So Archana, you're again Airtel is again a mass market brand, so to say, in the sense. I mean, everybody is a potential customer, right? How do you deal with brand safety issues? Do you work with partners today? How tell me about the thought process there.
So basically, like Taran said, we already have certain filters that we maintain, which is one thing which we do. What we've also done is we've done a one-off pilot to check both, not only we've done it for across all the parameters, which is viewability, ad safety, and ad fraud, right? And to see what is our benchmarks versus the industry benchmarks, right? To see whether we are good, bad, ugly. I mean, where are we on it? And based on that, now we're just taking decisions as to what do we need to improve on and how do we go about that. So that's the work that is currently happening. But given that most of the advertising that we do is largely on platforms which are, like the OTT platforms or news platforms or the gaming platforms and things like that, it's a lot of it is, we know where we are placing those that advertising, right? And hence, from a brand safety standpoint, there is a little lesser issue that we have. I think the issue arises a lot more when you're looking at, like a lot more programmatic, where you don't know where your brand, because you've identified or defined a audience and a behavior and everything, and you don't really know where that, because if somebody is going and watching a particular news item, which could have something which is, say, terror attacks, or there's some content which is not what you want your brand to be, but that's where the consumer is. I think there is that it's a fine line, and obviously we want to be on the side of caution and ensure that we are not present on those, and those are things where we are also sometimes doing manual checks on those pieces.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you everyone for your time, and let's see if we have some questions from the audience.
Yes, we have some questions.
Yeah.
You can see them here now.
Yeah, I can see that. So I have two questions. One is, what's your take on advertising on games? Since COVID, we've been noticing a distinct upward shift in brands' presence on games. So, Taranjeet, is this true for you? Are you considering games as a category consciously to advertise in?
So yeah, I think it's again to do with if the audience is really there. So if I were to look at in a FMCG space, yes, there are enough and more women, who've picked up on the digital platform in terms of consumption. And interestingly, I think one of the reports which I had read is the age group of 35 to 45, which always used to be under-indexed, has started becoming higher on digital consumption because of the pandemic, right? And I do feel gaming is an important component, but where and what in gaming, I've at least not done it in any of our campaigns. But yeah, I think it is definitely an area to explore.
Ram, can I?
Okay.
Yeah. So from Airtel standpoint, we're looking at gaming from two angles, right? Two aspects, right? One is the casual gamers, the ones like who play regular games just for time pass and whatever. And we've actually done some amount of advertising on those kind of games, like your Candy Crushes of the world and all of that, Subway Surfers and all of that. And we find, so I'm looking at it purely from a brand metric, which is saying I want to drive some video narrative among this audience, and how do I drive a video narrative to this audience who's gaming. And that's one piece that we do, which we have already, and we started doing this primarily during the lockdown. The second piece we are doing, and this we had actually kind of signed up even before the lockdown happened, was the whole piece. We've done a tie-up with Nodwin Games, and where we are now the title sponsors for the Airtel India Esports Tour, right? And it's a title sponsorship across all the championships that happen. And that's the space that we are now exploring further in terms of these, the gamers who are actually, for lack of a better word, I'm just calling them hardcore gamers because I do. But they're the ones who actually play for winning. They participate in championships to win money. And so they spend a lot of time gaming. They not only spend a lot of time gaming to improve their games, but they also spend a lot of time looking at other gamers. And there are a lot of gaming channels which are there on Google, because I've done a lot of work on this to understand this platform. So that this whole piece of, there are these gamers who are like celebrities or mini influencers among themselves, actually. So there's a huge ecosystem on games, but it's still very narrow and niche as of now, and not really explored fully as of now from an Indian context.
All right. So is there a gamification plan within ShareChat?
I mean, not exactly. I mean, we are into Moj, and like we are into creative content as such, but not exactly into gaming. But it is definitely a good avenue for advertising. I mean, from the perspective of what we are seeing in terms of velocity that the app installs for gaming category, as that has happened, definitely that pool base is increasing big time. And yeah, I mean,
great. Shani, do we have time for another question?
We can take one last question. We are out of time, but we can take one last question.
Okay. So there's one question on how do you see the challenge as a marketer going to face after privacy laws strengthening in India? Archana, I'd love to hear from you on this, actually. You're on mute, I think.
Yeah. See, as a marketer, obviously, there are going to be challenges in terms of, because I think if I look at privacy laws, when you talk about privacy laws, are we talking about a cookieless world, or are we talking about, because anyway, in today's world, private information or personal information of any consumer is not available, right? So when I look at, so I'm just wondering how to answer this question, because you're looking at more from behavior standpoint. You look at targeting from a behavior standpoint. You look at surrogates, right? You look at saying, okay, people who have handsets of a certain value or pricing, and I will categorize them as a certain type of audience, right? Or so I'm saying there are a lot of other ways of targeting audiences, and it need not, we are anyway not using personal information anywhere. So I don't know what was the exact question here.
No, I think the context is more around laws similar to GDPR that are coming in about storing data locally. And also, Airtel, also operates in a highly regulated industry, and you also have access to personal information that is linked to a phone number, right, as a telecom provider. So just understanding what your role
that information, that's what I was saying, that information doesn't get used, right? There is no information that is available to use for anybody in the within the Airtel system also, right? Because it is governed, you yourself said it's a regulated industry, right? It is fully regulated. So there is no way that information, which is personal information, that can be used in any manner. And it doesn't get
just add to, I think, what Archana was talking about, and I think what the question is, I think from a GDPR perspective and PII perspective that I think the question is on about, what advertisers primarily are doing, and this is, I think, more linked to cookieless environment is what I'm getting to, is of course, with the cookieless environment hitting in, the dates are shifting every day we read in news. I think it's now going to be first maybe Jan or something like that, right? But we'll see how it happens. But from an advertiser perspective, what we're really preparing ourselves is creating our own first party data. right? And when I'm talking about privacy, then even if I'm, let's say, running a campaign and I'm doing a microsite, and every time I'm asking for information, whether it is in the form of phone number or email ID, we have to get that legally sanctioned internally before we take the campaign live. Have the GDPR compliance in, and I remember one campaign we just did recently, where we had checked with the legal team, we got the compliance done, and then only we could take it live, versus what we were not doing before, I would say 2 years before, right? Where you could take information and all somebody had to do is just click on the information and submit it. With the GDPR coming in picture, I think from an advertiser perspective, we are more cognizant before we take a campaign live, get the compliance in place. Only if somebody is willing to share the data, does it get obviously submitted. And then of course it has to be linked to the first party data that we are wanting to create, and specifically in FMCG sector, it is because we are so much dependent on other platforms, and I'm not going to open up the Pandora's box on wall gardens and other things, but I think the gist of it is, to make it short, is more on, first party data is getting built, and we are only trying to get more and more data which is obviously compliant, and use it further in our campaigns.
Great. Thank you everyone for your inputs.
Thank you everyone. I think that was a wonderful session. Thanks for moderating that so beautifully, Ram. And I think we had some great discussion points. Moving on, I think we've answered 2 or 3 questions, and I will let you take the rest of the questions offline. Moving on, I have one more question for the audience, and please let me know what you think of this. So the next question is around mobile commerce. So I want to know, when was the last time that you bought something on your mobile phone? So was it 1 day ago, 1 week ago, 1 to 3 months ago, or never? 1 day ago, clearly winning. Okay, I think that was an easy one. So I'm going to close it in 3, 2, 1 and share results. 1 day ago, clearly winning.